Welcome to Conscious Profits Unfiltered. This is your host, Sebastian Nam.
What's up, fam? We had a really great show today. We talked a little bit about sports, a little psychedelics, the journey of finding oneself, and of course, conscious business. With that, I want to give a special thank you and shout out to the sponsor of today's show, Conscious Capitalism Los Angeles, whose aim is to connect, inspire, and cultivate conscious business leaders in LA. It is a key piece of a larger scale worldwide conscious capitalism movement. Today, I had on Nikki Trott, the founder and CEO of Conscious Accelerator, where they help entrepreneurs transform both internal mindset and external impact to unlock their full potential, fulfillment, and success. Nikki has consulted for over 100 top fashion lifestyle brands globally, from Mulberry to Mango to La Praire, before aligning her work and values. Her work is built upon the belief that business is driven by purpose and that together we can change our lives and the world through conscious entrepreneurship. We hit some juicy topics today, including burnout, anxiety, dissonance, partying, and how all of that ties into purpose. So stick around and enjoy the show. Nikki, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yes, Nikki, I'm going to start right away with a question that I ask everyone that I have on, which is, what was your last oh shit moment? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh my gosh, my last oh shit moment. I think it was when I realized in the last couple of days how little time I have to finish my book and how many chapters I want to write.
Whoa, well, congrats. So what's going on with the book?
Well, I'm writing a book all about how conscious business can change the world and how we can transform our own lives and the lives of other people and the way we interact with the planet through using business as a force for good. So it's really based on all the work that I've done and my programs and everything that we may or may not touch on today. It's really about my mission and what I've been doing. So I'm really excited to share it with the wider world in a book form.
I can't tell if it's you speaking or me speaking. So if you need a co-author, I'll fly over there to London. So that's amazing, Nikki. That sounds awesome. I can't wait to read it. And you are in London right now, correct?
I'm in London right now, yes. Where I'm originally from, back right where I was born after being nomadic and living away for 5 years. So it's nice to be here for a little bit. On.
That's cool. And before we get into you being nomadic, you're in London. And right now at the time of recording, the Euro Cup's going on. So England's going to be in the final. So by the time this goes out, something will be out there. But how do you feel about that? All that stuff? Is it crazy over there?
Honestly, I have no idea. I did watch the last game with my dad and my husband, very chilled at home. I only watched the second half. And afterwards, I was going to sleep in North London suburbs where it's beautiful and quiet. And I could hear people shouting and on the streets, which never happens here in this part of London.
Really?
So that was kind of funny. I mean, I'm glad it's making people happy, but it's not something that I personally really care about.
Yeah. So I grew up in Argentina.
Yeah.
And so I grew up very passionate about soccer. And so I love I don't watch too much club or any of that stuff, but I do love watching Argentina. And there's something that kind of sparks in me when I watch it and that I really care about. Over the years, though, I love watching it and I'm in the moment watching it, but I care less and less, I think, in a weird way of the result and kind of just enjoy the process and just enjoy the whole thing. But there's definitely something there to be said about the way people are from a nationalistic standpoint, I've got some crazy stories of friends that used to go to World Cups and just insane, and particularly British fans and Argentinian fans.
Oh.
And you guys brought the sport to Argentina, actually, when you built the railroad. I don't know if you knew that. But how do you feel about all that nationalistic stuff?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I feel like culture is moving on so quickly, but then maybe things stay more stagnant in traditions like football, right? I think a lot of people, like you described, might have been exposed to it as a child. It might be part of just what they do as a family. We never watched football as a family. My dad's from New Zealand. Soccer's not something that they really play there, even, I don't think. And, the All Blacks rugby team, if there's going to be a coolest sports team in the world, it's got to be them. Not that he even supports or watches them either. But, I'm pretty uncomfortable with the nationalistic kind of us versus them. Let's beat those, whoever. And I watched the England-Germany game in a pub in England because I was taking my dad on a trip with my husband and my sister. And we thought, okay, for the experience, let's go to an English pub, German husband. And it was really interesting. The people there were so lovely. And we had lots of laughs with the other people. Then there was this very racist German war bomber song at the end when we beat Germany. I say we, I mean they. And it's just really interesting because I don't think there's any other context where I'd find myself in that situation, but it seems somehow accepted. So, yeah, I don't have a lot to say about football, but I want everyone to win. I want the world to be a more open place. And I don't like this kind of fighting between countries. And I don't know what it is that gets people so excited. And it feels like an excuse for racism or going back to the war days. I don't know. Not for me.
It's a super interesting subject. And I'm sure there's actual full-blown podcasts about this whole thing too.
Definitely.
Because there's something beautiful about sports, at least in my opinion, that I love about the competition and the winning and just kind of the camaraderie that comes from playing in team sports and representing your colors versus the whole other aspect of us versus them and the hate and all that. I actually just watched a documentary on ESPN. It was called White and Blue. I believe it was called something like that. But it's about a very famous Argentinian soccer player that won the World Cup and then went to play in England. And at the time where there was no internet and any of that. And then the Falkland Islands War came in and it kind of talks all about mixed sports and war and everything. And he's very pacifistic and kind of goes off with like all that he cares about is that war is not good, basically. That's kind of the whole. But anyway, I digress. A totally different subject, but I thought it was interesting since you're over there in London as this is happening. So you were interested in psychology, design, and economics. That is a really interesting trio of things when you went to school. I was actually very interested in psychology and economics as well. I started studying some economics and it was on the macro level and got pretty bored with it. So it was more so, okay, I love psychology and I'm going to take that into business and entrepreneurship. So how did that work out for you in terms of business, design, and economics?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I remember at school just being generally frustrated that what I was learning didn't seem very practical. I always wanted to get my hands dirty a bit and be out in the real world. I guess I was always an entrepreneur in some way. I just didn't know. Because in my quite traditional education, there was no mention of entrepreneurship, actually. It was just all of the different, more traditional career paths that you might be choosing from. And I've always been fascinated by people, what motivates us, what within us is really causing us to make decisions or take actions or feel the way that we do and react the way that we do. I've always loved deep and meaningful conversations. I'm not really one for small talk. But at the same time, I found economics really interesting because it's all about how the world works. What are these systems that we have created and all of the intricate details of them and how can we use them and play with them. But I also found economics to be a bit too, at a school level, certainly, and at university level as well, which I did also have economics modules in my degree. It was still a little bit too theoretical and kind of idealistic and didn't
dry.
Yeah, it was dry, but it was based on models which were never going to happen. And I remember quite upsetting my economics teacher when I was saying at school that was my issue with it. But, design also has just always been something I've loved because I love creative pursuits and painting and drawing and knitting and music and really making creative things. And also I appreciate design and good design so much. And I've always been very aesthetically led. And I've been interested in how can I bring those things together so that it's meaningful. And where I ended up at the beginning of my career was in fashion, in the business side of the fashion industry. That was a place where I thought those things all came together. I found it thrilling and exciting, met incredible people, made friends for life. But as I went through my fashion career, more and more I felt I wasn't aligned with my values.
Yeah, I watched a doc a while back, The True Cost, I think it was called. Yeah. And that showed me a whole different side of fashion and fast fashion and clothing that I had no idea, it being actually one of the dirtiest industries in a way from, what we're doing to the planet. It was like the second after the oil industry, I believe. So tell me a little bit more about that. What about it did you not like? What was not resonating with you?
Well, I was working in the business side. I was working for agencies and startups, and I was consulting, and then eventually had my own company, consulting big brands on strategy and branding. And, it was exciting. And the projects were impactful. They were big budgets, big brands. But at the same time, I started to feel, the first thing was I just felt like the work was pointless. On one hand, I'd be intellectually stimulated and really enjoying it. And then I would deliver this PDF and think, what is the point of this? I'm helping Mercedes-Benz to sell more cars, or I'm helping H&M to get more returning customers. Why? And I used to sometimes zone out in meetings and kind of almost hover above and watch and think, this is absolutely absurd. There's 10 incredible people in this room, and we're talking about, where this bit of text is positioned on an ad to sell a bikini. I mean, it's nuts, actually. What are we doing? And then I'll kind of come back in again and travel and stay in great hotels. And there was, it was like being on hamster wheels. So I was really, really distracted, but more and more had this niggling feeling inside. So it started with feeling like it was really pointless. Then I was really questioning the impact on the planet and the sustainability or lack of, and why do we need any more clothes at all? I almost feel like if we just never made any more clothes, we'd all be fine. I think at this point, I think there's enough. Yeah. And, so more and more it just started to feel very uncomfortable for me. But I also became really passionate about body positivity and promoting a more positive and more diverse view of beauty ideals to people, and have been involved in work around that as well. So there were various different areas that started to become more important to me. And it just made the work that I was doing seem less and less aligned with what I cared about.
When you and I chatted before, you mentioned something about masculine energy running this industry.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit of what you mean about a masculine energy running an industry?
Yeah, well, I think that most business and corporations are run by a masculine energy at the moment. And this is not about sex. It's not about whether you're a male or female body, although that does obviously play a part, especially historically. But it's really been, for me, what I experienced was I had to show up with my masculine energy at the front, which actually I kind of always did. So I think that was natural to me anyway. It was easy for me to do. That's how I succeeded, because I looked at all of these companies, and when you're meeting C-level executives at top fashion brands, you're in a room of men, and they're working out what they want to sell to women and how to tell women that they're more beautiful if they give them their money. It's really absurd, actually. And to succeed,
so whether or not you're a man or a woman, it's not about, like, there could be more women in a room. However, the masculine energy is what's running that room.
Yeah. And I think that's because the industry has typically been run by men. So then when the women go in, they need to show up, or they feel that they need to show up with their masculine energy to match what's happening in that room, to be taken seriously, to be listened to. And that the other sides that are in all men and women of the feminine or the softer are not appreciated in business, are they, or in corporations? And that's one of the big problems, I think, that's led us to put profit above all else and destroy the planet with no real care, as long as the numbers are going up.
There's an interesting connection there almost, right, between the masculine and feminine energy and to where capitalism has gone. I think that is changing. I see change. I believe there's change. I want to believe there's change in that.
Yeah.
To where males are changing as well. And that's
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The amount of enlightened men and women and any gender at all that I'm meeting now is incredible. And I think that we're starting to show up as our full selves more and more, and say, I'm not going to leave my values at the door and take this paycheck. I'm not prepared to do that. And I think millennials and younger especially are just not able to separate. And we live in this new world now where everything's online, where we're publishing our opinions all the time. Most people or young people are on social media in some way or another, or maybe have a podcast or maybe have a book, and we're sharing our opinions. So we need to be full and whole in what we do at work and at home. It comes from the same place.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're seeing this change, and I know we're a part of it. We're at least part of inspiring that change, and I'm happy that we are a part of that. And so, but Nikki, you must have hit some sort of rock bottom, or something happened in that journey of yours, realizing that this industry wasn't for you. When you were talking about that moment of hovering above the room and being like, what the heck am I doing here? We're talking about the positioning of a text on an ad or whatever that may be, which, by the way, I used to be pretty obsessed when I was younger about like little tiny things on ads I remember watching like Super Bowl commercials and being like, just, oh man, that's what I want to do one day. I want to figure out what little things of design, detail, positioning of one thing or another, an emotional marketing, what about it is going to cause somebody to want to make a purchasing decision or like or not like a brand. And now I see that differently. I mean, I still think that way, but more towards conscious brands as opposed to just buying anything, right?
Yeah.
So there's still that aspect.
Because I completely agree with you. It's an art and it's beautiful when it's used in the right way. But we were selling an H&M bikini. So I'm thinking, what is the point of this? It's not about the art of how you might be communicating, which can be used in positive and negative ways. It's like, we're all here talking about a $3.99 H&M bikini that nobody needs, that comes from no mission whatsoever. It does not sing in any of our souls. So that's where that thought came from. Yeah. Sorry, you asked me another question.
What's that?
You asking me when I hit rock bottom, right? How did I make the change?
Yeah. Anyone out there though, if you see a $3.99 bikini, think about it. Think about that again. There's a reason it's $3.99. Don't buy it. Okay. Yeah. So what was the rock bottom then, Nikki? What happened? What was the transition for you?
Well, what really happened was I was going on my personal spiritual journey, and that was starting to underpin how I felt about work. Of course, being one whole human. And so I'd become fully vegan by this point. I had started meditating. I had started reading spiritual books, the first one being The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which I'm sure most of your listeners, if not all, have read, and kind of taking steps into discovering my spirituality. And I had been brought up in a very science dictated sense of the world. Science is fact, science is truth, nothing else exists. And I started to realize that there's nothing wrong with science, but that it needs to be very much complemented by, and actually before even looking at science needs to come a sense of our own experience and intuition and things which you can't really measure, and consciousness, which cannot be, or we haven't found a way yet to measure. And so the separation just started to grow, and I had a big Saturn return. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I didn't know what a Saturn return was. I know nothing about astrology whatsoever, but I was told many times as I went through it, you're having a Saturn return, which is when your planets are all in the same place as when you were born for the first time, when you're around 29 years old. And anyway, that happened to me. I didn't know the Saturn return thing, but I left my long-term partner, moved out of my apartment, quit my job as a director of a great agency. I cut my long hair off. I moved to Berlin. I became fully vegan. All the things happened within 3 months. So then I went to Berlin and I set up a business, and I was consulting still big brands, Mercedes-Benz and Mac and the Praire, but I had twice the money, for half of the working time, and lots of freedom and lots of time to explore my spirituality. And actually started doing a lot of Pilates, which for me was a really spiritual practice because I connected with my body again. And before that, my body had been the shell that I just pushed around and burnt the candle at both ends and traveled and worked and partied. And then I started to kind of connect into my body, and I realized that I could no longer do the work I was doing. And actually, you asked me if there was one moment, I was flown from Berlin to New York to run a digital strategy conference for a luxury skincare brand. And I'd started to really try not to fly long distance for short times, but this one I did. And they asked me to have a facial so that I could get to know the product. And it was actually my first ever facial. And I'm quite low maintenance. And so I was having this facial, and this wonderful woman who was giving me the facial, beautiful soul, she was explaining to me that the products had caviar in them. And I asked her what real caviar, and she said, yes, it's real caviar. It's our signature. And I was just lying there thinking, this is absolutely absurd. I'm vegan. I would never buy this product. It's a small plastic pot with more plastic than cream, huge ostentatious design, little bit of cream in the middle, $1,000 retail, and caviar. And I just thought I would never buy this. I would never tell anyone I know to buy this. I would never give this as a gift. This is just not me. And it was really, I just lay there thinking, it's only me who's going to change this, because more and more companies are going to come and offer money, and money has never been my biggest driver. It's only I can change this and change the cycle. Otherwise it would just carry on forever, and the projects get bigger and the brands get bigger and the money gets bigger and everyone's even more stuck. So after that, I got on the plane and I said, that's the last time. It doesn't matter what comes on my desk. I'm not doing it again. And I walked away from that business. And much to the dismay of some of my friends and family who were wondering what on earth was happening to me, leaving this successful business, which by the external measures of what you're told success should be, it ticked those boxes, but didn't fulfill me. So that was the start of the next journey.
Hey guys, I just want to remind you, if you want to find more content like this, you can visit sebastiannaum.com. That's Sebastian, NAUM.com. You can also get a ton of other marketing resources from myself and my agencies, ranging from SEO to social media, influencer marketing, branding, web development, and more. Again, that's sebastiannaum.com. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the show. Start of the next journey. What is success?
To me, success is freedom, fulfillment, and positive impact.
Freedom, fulfillment, and positive impact.
Yeah.
Love that.
I've thought about it a lot.
Yeah, you had that one ready.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when people sometimes have a rock bottom, or they have because it sounded like you had a little shift before that, because you left a boyfriend, you cut the hair, you left a job. But there was still something missing there, because you still went back to consulting, and it was just, you had started your own business at that point, but then you realized you were kind of back in the same cycle, right? Yeah. It's kind of easy to find oneself, like you have this shift, and then you leave something, and then you kind of get back in it. I found that's happened to me, in life. And then you kind of need a bigger push to get out of that. And so last time we talked, you also mentioned that you took some psychedelics, and there was something going on there that also caused this shift. Was that before this, after, during?
Psychedelics, plant medicines started during this phase. So after I had made that first big cut, and then I started to explore opening my mind more. And it was part of my spiritual transformation, I guess, which had many elements. Yeah.
Got it. Do you feel that's necessary for anybody?
Definitely not for everybody. I mean, I don't think there's any tool which is for everybody. Maybe breathing, actually. It's pretty useful for everybody. But, and we can all use our breath better. But I don't think there's any tool that's for everybody. I have asked myself that question, how important was this process with psychedelics in my overall experience? I mean, I've had more intense experiences just through Vipassana meditation. 10 days of silence and meditation has given me more intense experiences, and breath work has also given me more intense psychedelic experiences than plant medicines or psychedelic substances. So I think there's many ways that we can access these different realms within ourselves. And I don't think that you even have to, but just for me, it was really important overall, all of these different tools coming together to change my perception of reality and open up my mind and get me to dismantle the identity that I had built for myself. Because I realized that the only person who was trapping me was me, and that I had started to value myself based on my social currency, based on the company I had and the brands I worked with and the money that I made and the way that people told me you're really successful because you've done these things. And I then started to believe that and say, that's who I am.
Yeah.
And so I think that they really helped me to break that down and go back to the core.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's true. People do all kinds of different things, and some people use different tools. You know, people will shave their eyebrows and shave their heads because that kind of, when you see yourself without eyebrows or hair, it's a totally different person, right? And all of a sudden you've lost that identity. I recently heard, you know, you mentioned, you know, partying throughout, you know, when you're in that kind of industry, you know, and you're making lots of money, it's easy to get into partying. I'm very guilty of partying a good amount in my life. And then you start, when you shift out of that and you start doing things like breath work, and you can see how powerful that is. And I heard Russell Brand say recently that a drunkard on a corner is just a guy trying to have a spiritual experience. And I was like, what in the world are you talking about? And then he went on to explain it. And we have this desire to leave our bodies, to try to understand something deeper than what's just right here, to try to connect with other human beings on a deeper level. And in a way, people partying are actually doing just that. That's just the way they know to forget about, you know, their job or their problems or whatever, to try to connect on a different level. And I think it's really important. Hopefully more and more people can find a different way of doing that. Once you realize that there are different ways of doing that, like you just said, you can have a more powerful experience on doing breath work than with plant medicine. Yeah. Which is crazy. Yeah. And it's amazing. And I love being able to do some breath work. And then I immediately go to journal and write things down. Yeah. Because otherwise I just remember the experience being powerful and I won't necessarily remember so much. Then I'll go back and read it and be like, yes, that's right. That was the realization I have. I need to integrate this more into my life. Yeah. I got to remember it, you know? So I think writing things down after meditating, after doing breath work is super important, really cool.
Yes, I agree with you. The integration is super important, and it's a whole other topic, isn't it? Yeah. And on the partying thing, I need to look up that from Russell Brand. I really enjoy his perspectives a lot. And what I see is different is there are many substances which take you away from yourself. And somehow, I don't know how, I managed to escape using any drugs at all apart from alcohol. Although I was constantly surrounded by them. I think I was surrounded by them so much that it was so off-putting. And, you know, I've been in work parties where people have said, the boss just asked you to have a line. That's an honor. I can't believe you said no. I don't care. I don't care. You know, if that makes me do better in my job or not, it's not for me. It's probably the wrong job. You know, I knew that already. And I think that, you know, I used to drink alcohol a lot. I'm from London. We all did. And only now I can see that probably me and every single person I know had an alcohol problem. But we think that it's totally fine to drink every week, to drink every weekend, to drink when you want to celebrate, to drink when something's annoyed you. You know, I broke up with my boyfriend, let's go and get drunk. I mean, this was like normalized and actually super unhealthy. And I found that it really separated me from myself. So I stopped drinking alcohol completely a couple of years ago or more now. Yeah, more than maybe 2.5 years ago. And before that, started to really cut it down. I'm not saying alcohol is evil for everybody, it's wrong, but I think we have a very dangerous relationship with it, which really hinders our development. And there are lots of other drugs and substances, which I haven't personally used, which I've observed very closely and seen how they take people away from their true selves as well and remain more in the ego. But that's why psychedelics and plant medicines are so different, because obviously, as you know, they're not addictive and they're not harmful to your body, but they're also connectors instead of blockers. And so that is a totally different experience. But when I lived in Berlin, I started going clubbing. I was like in my early 30s, and I've never gone clubbing like that ever in my life, partly because I was vegan. I had like next level energy than I'd ever had before. But also because the clubs there are so amazing. And there's a club called Berghain, which is my favorite club, and it's techno. And I used to go many, many times, not every Sunday, but most Sundays in the daytime, in the afternoon. And psychedelics or not, completely sober or a bit of psychedelics, whatever, dancing for 6 hours to incredible techno music, I found so spiritual. And it completely changed my understanding of partying. And I made so many friends there who were so diverse, who really experienced partying for very different reasons. And it's amazing to just be in a massive club and dancing completely sober and connecting with your body and seeing all of the bodies together and moving as one, and this connection between everything. And it just makes you feel like you can see the connection of everything in the universe there. And we've been dancing since ever, right? Since the beginning of time. And I haven't danced myself for like the last 18 months. And I'm craving it. And I've tried it on my own, and it's kind of nice, but it's different. It's just this energy of everyone together. I want to say tribal, but I don't want to be disrespectful by using that word, but it's just, people coming together and dancing to the same beat. It's just something that we all know deep in our souls. So I think we can use partying as something really spiritual. We can use it as something to just escape ourselves and our lives or anything else. Yeah.
I'm so glad you put it that way. It's so interesting. First of all, it is, maybe it's a very LA and London thing that it's so easily to get caught up in, during the week, you do all your shit right. I do well in my job. I make money. I meditate a couple times. And then it's like on the weekend, you get wasted, and that's not, and then, so you think that's okay. That's okay. And that's normal until something happens at some point. For some people, never, but something happens at some point, that you realize like, this is not okay, and that doesn't mean that you have to go be completely sober or not do anything. And just like you were saying, right, partying, whether it's sober or whether it's psychedelics or not, or this or that, but the dancing aspect, because there reached a point to me where I was associating like partying is only one way. And partying, heavy partying, fun parties are only this way. And it requires substances or whatever, right? Or alcohol. And once you realize not, and I think, I don't know if it was the first time I realized it. I think I always knew it, but I did like this ecstatic dance in Thailand, which the whole idea of it is, to be fully sober, and also no kind of like, you're not supposed to be hitting on the opposite sex or the sex, whoever you're attracted to. It's just being yourself and just allowing the music to go through you and just dancing. And it's super effing weird and fun. And it was such a different experience. And it was like, oh man, you can party hard without, getting drunk or doing anything, Yeah. And it's so true how it's very connecting, in a way. So, and it's the essence. Dancing is part of the essence of ours. So, all right. So you started, we went all over the place there, which is what's fun about this. That's what I like. So
you never know where we'll go.
Yeah. So conscious business. And so after you had a lot of these realizations and you dropped that consulting gig, even though you were doing very well, working, half the time, making double the money. How did you make the shift into conscious business and consulting on conscious business?
So first, I describe it as like the pendulum completely swung the other way. I went and trained in life coaching and transformation coaching. I wanted to learn something about how to really affect people at a deeper, meaningful level. And I just felt like people can just pay me whatever they can. And I don't want to, I want to help everyone and I want to save the world, and I don't want to damage anything on the planet ever again. And I kind of went for the other side, and then went through my training, got certified and everything, and started coaching incredible visionary women and enlightened men. And really people who were aligned with my values, who want to make a positive impact on the world. And then through this process, I realized, okay, all of that experience I have, those years of consulting and business and brands and entrepreneurship, are there to help all of these people to succeed, as well as the coaching part. So where I started with the coaching being the main driver, it became one piece, one part of how I help clients and businesses. And so I brought them together. And I learned through this that we really normally treat our internal, deep personal development as something completely separate to our business goals and how we're improving our businesses.
Yeah.
And I think that's totally flawed, because as the people who are driving our businesses, it comes from within us. And then our business is like an outward expression in the world of our inward environment. So if you're feeling really negative and there's a lot of hate inside, then that's going to be expressed through the work you do. You're not going to care about people. It will affect the culture of the company and many other things. So I started to then bring them together. And that's why I created my program, Transform on Purpose, which is all about, okay, let's look at the internal world. Let's work on really igniting your power and removing your blockers like fears and limiting beliefs and self-sabotage and all the things that we all have and do at different times. And then really aligning with your purpose and your values and what really matters to you. And then building a really smart strategy and brand platform and tools for your business to succeed, and putting all of those things together so that your objectives are like personal and professional in one place. And then you can really set yourself up for success instead of having these fragments that don't really complement each other.
So would you say that you don't think that somebody can have a different, like their own personal goals be completely different from their business?
Goals, I think, can be, but values, no.
Values, no. Okay.
Yeah, so I think we all have one set of values that underpin absolutely everything we do. And so you can set different goals based on that. Like I can say my value is freedom, and one goal in my business is going to be able to run it remotely. And one goal in my personal life is going to be able to go to New Zealand and hike this trail I really want. Like you can make different goals, but I think they come from the same place if we're in alignment with our true self.
Okay, so we can have, and so that's the key, right? Because we can have certain values internally, and then we are expressing completely different values in our jobs on a daily basis. So what happens when we do that, which is probably what 90% of us or maybe more do?
Yeah. The really interesting thing, and I've actually learned this myself, but also through all of the people I've interviewed on my podcast and listened to, actually. And I hear again and again from people that they get signs in their body, that their body is telling them. And our mind is rationalizing, but I'm doing really well, or, oh, but just 2 more years and then I'll get to this point and that's what I have to do. But the body is saying, no, stop. And that shows up for some people in anxiety. It shows up for others in panic attacks or depression, or just, feeling a disconnection from yourself, or just feeling a meaninglessness to life, and, treating yourself badly, addictions, all sorts of things can kind of come from that. And I think that really when we ask ourselves, am I really fulfilled? Am I aligned with my mission in this world? If you can't answer yes right now, today, I feel that I am, then you're going to be trying to make up for that gap and filling that hole in other ways. That's why we buy clothes as well. I don't truly love myself, but maybe I will if I wear this dress. Didn't work. Let's try another one. No, still not working. Maybe I'll be more valuable if I buy one more. And, then you realize it's nothing to do with any of the external stuff. I think that's a good illustration.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I love what you're saying in terms of how it shows up through your body. It really does. I've experienced that a lot.
Have you?
And I'm learning. Well, it's an ongoing. I think I'll continue to learn it until I'm 120, because that's how old I'm going to be. But so I am learning to try to pick up on that faster and faster, quicker, so that it's more immediate, as opposed to what happens when you allow it to just build up over time, which is what happens to most of us. A lot of stress can build up over time, and stress builds up even when you have no idea that it's building up. And,
Exactly.
I think stress will continue to build up either way. It's figuring out ways to diminish that, to, work with it. I think it's just almost like it's just, we're a product of what's going on too, with all of these new tools and media and things and stimuli that are coming at us at all times. That's causing more anxiety and stress that we're not used to. We don't really have the tools of how to deal with that. And we're working on it. But in terms of having your values not really align with what you're doing on a daily basis, and that showing through your body and showing in different signs, I think that's a beautiful way how you put it. And I think it's a great way for people to start paying attention to that. Because I think it's really easy to say, hey, my values are about taking care of my family. My values are, all family oriented, and I want to provide for my kids and and my wife and this and that. And this job that doesn't align with my values pays me a lot, which allows me to fund this other side of my values. So that's a really easy way to kind of get caught in a lie per se, right?
Yeah, I think so. I agree. And, taking care of your family is one value, but what are the others? And how are they showing up?
Right.
And, I think also that scenario you described really brings us to this very common misconception, which I have had myself, which I'm focusing on in my book to try to dispel, that you can only have one or the other. You can either make good money or you can do something with meaning. And there's no such thing as doing both. So what are you going to choose? And that's how we've been conditioned in our societies. And that's what we truly believe, I think. I mean, that's what I believed. I said, don't need the money anymore. Have that. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go the other way. I'm just going to do something with meaning. And then I realized, oh, wait, now I'm delivering more value than ever. I'm more aligned with my true creativity and potential than ever. This is bigger than anything I could have dreamt of, and so I think we're seeing more and more examples in businesses like Oatly and Patagonia and these companies who are leading their categories because their brands are driven by purpose, and that brings more value even to the old school stakeholders who are still judging businesses in the same old ways. Even for them, now we're seeing that purpose-driven businesses are winning. So
absolutely. Yeah, I love that too, because I want to make sure that anybody listening, and when I talk to my friends and people that I speak to in general, it's not just for entrepreneurs. It's not just if you're a founder, right? It works for entrepreneurs too. You can bring this to your business and to your brand. And if you do your absolute best to bring consciousness to your workplace, and it's just not working because it's not aligned, you can go get a job in a big company or corporation. Because if that's your thing and you want to work for a big corporation because they can move mountains like a Patagonia, then
very slowly, but yes, they can.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but essentially, yeah, you can do it, and that's what's awesome, that what we're seeing in the world today. So
exactly.
So you have a process, Nikki, right? You have a 3-step process.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit about just the basics of this 3-step process?
Yes. So that's what I kind of touched on very briefly, around the first one being around really firing up your personal power and getting rid of your blockers. Okay. And I truly believe that we have to do that. We have to look inwards first. When we want to make a transformation, when we want to level up in our business, in our jobs, in our careers, the first thing is, what's holding me back? Well, the main thing is going to be you. And so what are you scared of? What are you not looking at? And what are you avoiding? Very well, as I'm sure as I do, that as humans, we prefer to be in the discomfort of where we are than the discomfort of where we want to be, which is just complete madness. But we all do in some ways at some times just hang around a bit longer than
it's known. It's known discomfort versus unknown discomfort.
Exactly. We prefer the known discomfort. Yeah, exactly. And so really helping people to break that down, and also to build on practices and ways that they can really feel that they're in their power, in their zone. Building self-love is actually a big part of that as well. And so that's the first step. It's all about getting rid of your blockers and firing up your power. And then the second step is aligning with your values and defining your purpose, and really going then within once you've cleared out some of the noise, and going inwards and finding those values. And I have a methodology around that, and around then getting your purpose clear, and then translating your purpose into a mission, because it's also really important that we have a very clear mission statement that we're bringing into our work. And then the third step is about then really driving your impact on the world and driving the impact you're meant to make. So that's where we're very much in the consulting space then by the third step. And it's all about looking at your business, your brand, your platform, your strategies, and how you're going to really make a success of what you've discovered you really truly want to be doing.
Love that. Yeah. That's great. Nikki, what are the 2 traits that a conscious leader must embody today? The 2 most important traits, in your opinion, that a conscious leader must embody?
Well, that's a good question. I can only answer it in the moment now, what comes through, which is openness, and being really open which means being a great listener and not turning up with assumptions, but asking questions and really seeing what comes back. And the second one would be, I think to be really generous in allowing other people to really shine and grow in collaboration. So having an abundance mindset to collaboration and community, rather than trying to keep everything for yourself and trying to just excel and kick the competition out the way in this old school mindset, but rather knowing confidently that you will succeed when other people succeed even more than you do.
Wonderful. Love that. So Nikki, you said you're writing a book and you also have a podcast. How can people get a hold of you? What or tell us a little bit about the book. Do you have a date planned? Am I putting you on the spot?
I don't have a date. I'm waiting for my publisher. We're discussing the date, so I can't share the date exactly now. But it will be hopefully this year. My podcast is called Going Conscious, and I would love to invite you as a guest if you would have the time. It would be wonderful to have you there.
Invite accepted.
Thank you. Brilliant. I'm looking forward to continuing our conversation then. And I'm definitely going to be asking you about what you described around the tools that you're using to listen more to your body. And that sounds really fascinating. So yes, you can search Going Conscious on any platform, but the easiest way to find me is probably just on Instagram, which is Nikki Trott, NIKKITROTT, or on LinkedIn, same name, Clubhouse, same name. Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Nikki. Absolutely loved our conversation. Love what you do. So please keep doing you, keep being you. And thanks again for being on today.
Thank you so, so much. It's amazing to meet another aligned person. I'm so happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. You know, it takes a lot to put these things together, but I truly love doing it. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, and you listen to it on audio podcast, please take some time to give it a review. It would really mean a lot to me. And if you watch the video, please go ahead and just click subscribe and share it with somebody that you think would like it. It would really mean the world to me, and it helps keep the show alive. Visit sebastiannaum.com for more content and follow me on Instagram at sebnaum. That's SEBNAUM. Thanks again for spending your time with me. I know it is valuable. I hope you have a great rest of the day and week. Till next time.